All right, so my name is First Lieutenant Jarrett Ware. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. I was formerly an 0602 communications officer. Now I am a 1702 cyberspace operations officer.
Awesome. So can you talk a little bit about when when you when you first joined the military, what you intended to do, and how that all worked out?
So when I first joined the military, I wanted to be a communications officer. My SBC at TBS was a commo. He really played a big impact on what I wanted to do as an officer. And so I was chosen and selected to be a communications officer. My first duty station, I arrived here at Camp Lejeune, became the S6 up at II MiG. Worked there for a while, enjoyed my time. But working in the MiG, I got a chance to start working with the Information Operations Cell. And as I learned more about that, that was when I started learning about cyberspace, and that was how I decided I wanted to move over into the 17 career field.
At the MiG, was the entire environment was kind of about information operations. Did that play a factor in your focus on information as a domain of warfare?
Yes, so as the S6 at the MiG, I had to learn how to integrate our networks to support the other IRC's information-related capabilities. In order to learn how to do that, I decided to go to the IMIOPIC, the Intermediate MAGTAF Information Operations Planner course. And that was where I learned how to plan for information operations, and I took that course to apply it to my job to learn how to build networks to support information operations.
And as far as that kind of sounds like a very almost like a defensive cyber mission to begin with. So how have your roles changed since you moved over to DCOIDM, or have they at all?
So since I moved over to the Defensive Cyber Operations Company, I've just been mainly focused on defensive cyber operations. So when I was up at the MiG, I was looking at information operations as a whole, all 13 of the different IRCs. Now I'm only focused on one specific IRC. The great thing about cyber, though, is our mission supports everyone else. Cyber is not the main effort, but we support the main effort.
How would that play out in a downrange environment, or how did that play out in Trident Juncture?
So during Trident Juncture, our mission was to secure the networks of the II MEF command element. So we placed our sensors on the network. We had our Marines working on the network in order to proactively hunt and look for intrusions or look for adversaries that might try to interrupt operations and stop kinetic operations and exercises that we were doing at that time.
Very cool. And you mentioned proactively hunting for potential adversaries. Can you just walk us through just the basics of how that plays out, or how that works?
So on the bare basics, we try to focus on intel-driven operations. So before we go out onto a mission, our intel analysts will do an assessment of the area, try to understand what threats might be in that AO that could affect us. We take that information and use it within our planning phase to build out our TTPs and understand the enemy's TTPs, so understand their different malware, their different intrusion techniques that they would use against us. Once we arrive in that area, we kind of tune our sensors to look for those. We look for what's known as IOCs, or indicators of compromise, and then we spend our time hunting, maneuvering through the network, looking for adversary activity, looking for anything that might be suspicious or outside of normal behavior.
Very cool. And how does that defensive cyber mission interact with the other functions of operations in the information environment, such as DODIN ops or offensive cyber operations? How do they all interact?
So defensive cyber, again, we play a support role. Again, we are not the main effort, but we provide support to ensure that the main effort can do their job. You know, if the networks are down, the commander cannot talk to his forces and they can't accomplish their mission. So our job is to secure his network, secure his means of communication to their forces.
Very cool. Sounds like you have a pretty good amount of knowledge of how all this stuff kind of works. Did you have a good working knowledge of cyber operations before you lat transferred?
No, I did not. So before I transferred, my background was just as a basic communications officer. So I had a general understanding of how to plan, install, operate, and maintain networks. but securing those networks was a completely different beast. After I lat transferred into 1702 and I moved over to Defensive Cyber Operations Company, it's just a lot of on-the-job training, a lot of self-study, personal reading, and then I had a lot of good staff NCOs who helped teach me.
And what resources did you use for self-study? What would you recommend to officers out there who are looking at lat transferring?
So there's a lot of free resources online. Those who have military email addresses can apply for an account through a website called FedVTE. They have a lot of free online courses that covers a wide range of topics within cybersecurity.
So let's get a little bit down into the weeds with at DCO IDM company. So what is your role there, and what does that consist of on a daily basis?
So I'm the executive officer of the Defensive Cyber Operations Company. On a daily basis, I deal with different administrative issues with the Marines, as well as operational planning and working through different exercises that we're looking to do as a company, as well as exercises and operations that we're looking to support, whether it be other battalions, other companies, or even other MSCs.
And this is your first or second billet as a cyber officer?
So this is my first billet as a cyber officer. This is only my second billet in the fleet.
Gotcha. Sounds good. When you initially applied for the lat transfer, did you know that there was a chance you could be stationed at one of the MEFs or MIGs?
At the time, no, I did not know where they would send me, but I knew I still wanted to be in cyber. I felt that my greatest strength was the fact that I was still a young lieutenant, I'm a young officer, and I plan on staying in the Marine Corps for a long time. So I felt like if the Marine Corps took their time and invested in me, they would have years to get that return back.
So you feel like the selection board was interested in you as a younger lieutenant with not very much experience. Would you say that's right?
Yes, yes. I have not been selected for career designation yet, and I still feel like the fact that I highlighted to the board that I do plan on staying in the Marine Corps for some time was really what helped me in my personal application.
What other tips would you give to those applying to lat transfer?
I would say you don't need to know a lot about cyber. We're not looking for good cyber officers, we're looking for good officers. So my job as a cyber officer is still to lead, train, guide, and mentor Marines. And regardless of what MOS I currently have or what MOS I came from, that mission doesn't change.
Absolutely. And as far as life out at one of the MEFs and MIGs, is it fairly dynamic, or what does the deployment kind of schedule look like? What is the pace of operations out here?
So right now out at II MEF, our current ops, they're pretty hectic right now. We're still building out the company as well as trying to support different operations. Our biggest thing is we're trying to sell our capability, show the MEF, show the Marine Corps what it is that we can do. So we have quite a few large exercises on our team this year.
Great. Can you talk about one or two of those exercises?
So currently we're looking at supporting a division exercise. We're also looking at supporting another MEF level exercise either later this year, and we're in the planning phases of doing a joint cyber exercise with the Air Force and the Army National Guard.
And where will that be?
So we're looking at establishing that out at Langley Air Force Base.
Very cool. And what would you say to people who are thinking about joining cyber but who are kind of on the fence, unsure if it's going to be exciting, or maybe they're afraid of just sitting at a desk for their entire Marine Corps career? What would you say to those people?
I'd tell them what was told to me, that as an officer it is your job to bloom where you are planted. I personally have enjoyed myself so far in my career, and I think that's because I've taken a lot of personal initiative and putting in time and effort to learn my job as well as get involved in the company and get out into the community. The cyberspace career field is huge. There's a lot of operations, there's a lot of opportunities within the Marine Corps as well as within the civilian sector. So there's a lot that you can do, there's a lot that you can learn. It's all up to you. It'll be as good as you make it.
That's great. And what do you hope to do when you rotate out of Camp Lejeune? What's your goals as far as your career in the cyber occupational field?
So for here in Camp Lejeune, I've been focused on the defensive side. For my next billet, I would like to move into offensive cyber operations. I feel like that will make me a more well-rounded officer and give me a good understanding of all operations that happen within cyberspace.
Cool. And after that, on down the road, how do you see yourself applying all this experience as a information operations planner, as a cyberspace officer, someone with prior '06 background?
So as a later down the line in my career, once I get experience on the defensive side and offensive side, I think I will be well positioned to work in a planner's billet and help commanders and their staff plan and integrate cyberspace operations, whether that be defense to secure their networks, secure their communications, or how to plan and employ offensive cyber fires.